Hello, YouTube. My name is Hall Upsion, and I just wanted to record my thoughts on a Stella guide. I recognize that I do have a Google Docs sheet detailing everything I've known about this character for like the last 3 years, but I figured that the visibility wasn't as high as I would have liked it to be. So I decided to just make a quick video showing off my build and my tree. Uh, so just to preface this, this is for the global release of Lion Game Server. So as of now, it is May 2021, and KR just released two different patches where Stella will change significantly. The first one will be buffing her in a large manner, while the second one will mostly be focused on nerfing her team play as well as her buffs. So basically, just to get to this, over here you can see my skill tree and my skill layouts. This isn't the way I usually have it set up, but this is just shown how I rotate. So in terms of how much I value the chain, the first one is what I would always be casting. So we can just look through numbers 1 through 4, ignoring the last two for now. So base wave is your bread and butter skill. Each hit's doing about 1337, and you always get a double hit now. So that's about 2700, roughly rounding. If we take into account the third hit, that's about 2800. So as long as you're hitting triples every time, you get maybe 11, 12 hits, depending on your attack speed, and 13 if you have endgame gears. So, that's a lot of damage. And then I only really have Sokar here because without the AoV armor, or sorry, the AoV weapon too, there is less pressure to just have it on Chainlink 3. Ideally, you could use this on Chainlink 3 and have any skill in front of base wave, but I like the fact that Soul Scream here cancels out of anything and basically gives you the iframes to cast Space Wave no matter what happens. It also has a lot of multi hits, which is really good once we start going into penetration meta or if you're using Black Gauntlet still. And then over here, this is what I like to refer to as her Dlt Skills, where you basically cast something and you can start to cast a skill afterwards, but you'll still have something happening. So they have very roughly similar CDs, maybe give or take 1 to 2 seconds. So I would generally try to use these whenever they're up, and as long as I'm not in base wave or have base wave coming up. And then over here, these two chains are probably the more contested ones on which one I would rather cast. So Phantom Drum has really good damage. This is about 9 wolves, I think. I think the picture up here is the left extension instead of right. So if you see the right extension, it gives you a lot more projectiles. The reason this is good is because if we're talking about like quick burst, this is probably the quickest thing. Even Base Wave has a wind up animation where she summons her speakers, but this just comes out instantly, hits it 9 different times, and has a lot of damage. The only downside is if you are in her red form. So we just scroll down here, you see that. Oops, not this one. Sorry, here. So she has a mode change, and if you're in red form, you have to right click before you're able to cast your purple wolves and do a lot of damage. So if I'm in red form and I need to rotate filler abilities, I would probably use this chain. I only have I only have laser here only because sometimes in HH, if he does spin, this is the only way you can live without spam rolling or having to iframe with this chain. Otherwise, you can just do something like this and just ignore laser completely. But I think it's just nice to have the option, especially if you have low CD and need to rotate through abilities. Then this chain is also good because Swamp is decent damage. The downside of this ability is that you're forced to spam left click. Right click as of now isn't really worth it. Like you just get a lot less DPS overall. But yeah, so you have to stay autoing with this, and sometimes it's a lot faster just to maybe use this once or twice, roll cancel it. It'll still continue because of how laggy it is, and then you can cast something else like this, or even Phantom Release, which is pretty much my favorite ability in terms of filler because of how fast it comes out. And then moving on to here, you can see that I have two different buff chains. So normally, what ends up happening is you will want to use Beast Play just to proc her advancement passive, where if you're using a healing skill or a skill that heals your teammates, you will activate this, and any skill on active cooldown loses about 3 to 5 seconds CD, and then for the next 5 seconds, you will have 15% extra CDR. So the best way to use this would be to obviously use this chain right before this chain because you want to give yourself more attack and more attack speed before using your best skill, and then this will also give it 15% more CD. The only reason this chain exists is because as of right now, she doesn't have too many skills that you can put SP into and matter. So obviously the only two skills I haven't bothered scaling on this page would be Hysteric Shock and Beast Parade. As of right now, it's not the best abilities. Like these skills are generally awful and you should never really be taking them outside of maybe leveling through story until advancement. Once we get the KR rework that dropped at the beginning of May, Hysteric Shock becomes a lot better because it comes out instantly and you don't have to finish this entire animation. You can start walking once she puts her foot down here. So like right there, she puts her foot down and you'll be able to walk away or cast a different ability. Beast Parade, I'm still like, on the fence about seeing how most people skip it, but I haven't really played it myself, so I can't really say for sure. So going back to this chain, so if you see here, the CDs between this and this are pretty much similar, right? But because you have this CDR line for skill sets, or sorry, not skill sets, for the chain bonus as well as your advancement passive, there will be a lot of times where this CD isn't gonna be coming up at the same time. So you can see here that it's 45 seconds and this is 20. Sometimes it will line up somewhat close, maybe give or take 2 seconds, so it's not the end of the world. But if the duration of this buff is going to fail, as in it's going to run out, you want to cast this because having uptime on this gives you crit chance and attack speed, or sorry, not attack speed, crit chance and attack damage, which is pretty good for your DPS. But losing the 15% CDR bonus on this is really bad because overall you will be losing DPS. So to remedy this, I basically use her fastest filler, which is this Phantom Release, into this. This is about 10-second CD, and with CDR at the end game, you'll have it on 6-second cooldown. So generally, it should always be up once you're rotating through her better abilities. Some people will argue that Whirlwind is probably better filler, but I just think it's really bad when you have to spam right click or shift to cancel. When with Phantom Release, you can pretty much just wait 1 second and it'll finish casting, depending on your attack speed. So that pretty much just goes over my skill layout. And if you look at my tree, this should be fairly, unanimous. You skip left here because it doesn't give as much and it comes out a lot slower. For this, for Beast Play, obviously you want to go right because of the fact that it gives you 100% attack damage off of base. So it's not as much as you think it is, but it's still significant. And then for 15% crit chance, which means that you don't have to rely on Lily for crit buff. For the orbs, you don't have to pick it up. So anybody who's near you will get the effect within a certain radius, depending on how far you've casted it. But if somebody dies and respawns, they can always pick up the orb again later to get the buff itself. Or if the duration of your buff is running out, you can always just walk over an orb to refresh it. Okay. So left side laser has a little bit more damage than the right side, and I don't think there's ever a situation where you want range. The only reason I haven't really bothered like maxing these two abilities is because I don't think it's that good because I rarely ever cast these. So I would rather allocate the SP into other things. So obviously, like if you're saying you're maxing laser instead of beast party, I'm not gonna say anything. Like the difference is very minimal, and I think either or is fine. Everything else should be mandatory, with the exception of beast party. So this ability I think is fairly bad. The damage you get isn't that much, but sometimes you are in a position where you want to stay in the air and don't want to come down, namely through Violent Sun and Hidden Hideout. You could argue that you could just jump in HH as well as VS just to cast other abilities. But I think if you're learning the game, Beast Party is much more forgiving, and you get to save stamina for it, which is very important on HH armor. Or if you're on low on stamina on LF armor, that also comes in handy. So that's pretty much my actives. And then for my passives, right now there's no situation where you ever want auto attack. If you're auto attacking, you probably have imperfect stats or you're rotating very incorrectly. I know some characters do get SG regen on auto attacks, but I think that can just be fixed with pots. So yeah, never max this on anybody. Soul Strike is good because it gives you a little bit more SG when you switch stances. It's pretty good later on too, once we get her May rework, where the cooldown of this is going to scale with points. So on KR right now, it's 1 second flat, while here it is 3 seconds, which kind of makes her clunky sometimes. So obviously dodge dash, you can't touch this, but movement speed is good. I don't know what to say. Like, kind of griefing if you don't max this. Uh, dash attack is default. So dash attack, I don't think she ever needs this. It's pretty much a waste of SP. There's always something better to cast, and as Stella, you shouldn't really be struggling too much with SG with how many regen buffs you have, and the fact that she has the biggest bar. Yeah, she has the biggest base bar. Uh, and then going back up here, these three stamina passives are probably the hardest thing to like get a unanimous decision on. I don't think Tumble ever has a large priority to upgrade. I would rather max retaliation or soul evasion. The first point will lower the I guess they would just lower the CDs, and sometimes you want that. Obviously, it would be much more ideal if you just didn't get hit, but things happen. You can't make promises, and it just ends up happening. And then if you go down here, right now stamina mastery is at 0 because with the new armor set in the game, the latest one, Lunar Fall or Twilight armor, there is a passive where if you look here, if your stamina is is this standard? This is standard. If your stamina is below 10%, you increase your attack damage by 3000 for 1 second when hitting. So you want your stamina to be as low as possible, and regen will essentially be DPS loss here. And then max this for more stamina, max this for more CDR. And all in all, that is pretty much my Stella. Like these are my stats right now on Lions games. I've only been playing for about a month since release. And this was supposed to be a quick TLDR, but I think I rambled on for too long. But yeah, if anybody has like specific questions, you can always find me on my Twitch, which I'll link in the description, or my Discord. You can always just either join my server or DM me on Discord, or come in when I'm streaming to ask me a question, or just leave a question or a comment on this YouTube video.